And welcome to the Mental Health on the Mighty. This is Ask a Bipolar Advocate, which our bipolar advocate is the fantastic Gabe Howard. And my name is Camera. I will be facilitating questions and concerns and all of your needs to Gabe. But Gabe, would you like to give a little intro about yourself? Talk about this Q&A that we do every other week. Tell them about yourself, Gabe.
Yes, thank you so much, Camera. I love your enthusiasm. So my name is Gabe Howard, and I live with bipolar disorder. I'm also the author of the book, Mental Illness is an Asshole and Other Observations. So when I talk about answering questions about living with mental illness, literally wrote the book on it, right? As you can probably tell, I use humor to manage my bipolar and anxiety diagnosis. Living with mental illness it's insanely difficult, and I do mean that to be punny, right? It's hard. And when I was first diagnosed, I learned a lot from the medical community. And look, they're experts on the disease, but they're not experts on living with the disease. For that, I had to move into the peer community, peer support groups, and other people who were on the path of living with bipolar disorder, just further along than me. And they taught me all kinds of things. One of the biggest lessons that I ever learned was accidental. So imagine Gabe Howard all the way back in 2003, newly diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I've got all of this self-stigma swirling in my head. I don't know what to believe. I've never lived with bipolar disorder before. And all I knew about it was all the horrors that I had seen on TV and movies. And I believed a lot of that stuff because, well, why wouldn't I? Nobody had ever challenged it before. And I'm sitting in a peer support group, and there was 7 or 8 of us. It wasn't even a very big group. And there was a woman. She was probably about 5 or 6 years older than me, in her 30s, maybe mid 30s. And she said, "Hello, my name is," I don't remember her name, "I live with bipolar disorder." And then she started talking about her life. This was during the check-in portion of the support group. And she started talking about being overwhelmed by her husband, and being overwhelmed by her children, and being overwhelmed by taking care of the house, and being overwhelmed by her career and going to work, and that this was her present challenge that she was trying to manage on top of managing bipolar disorder. Now, I don't remember anything about this woman. I wouldn't recognize her if I saw her in the streets. But what I remembered is that she was a woman living with bipolar disorder that had a house, a husband, a spouse, children, a career. She was taking care of her family, and she was still taking time for self-care to take care of herself. And I thought that could be me. I have bipolar disorder, and I want a house, a spouse, children, and I want all of these things. And she was doing it. She was doing it unapologetically and frankly, very well, and still had the energy and strength to come to a support group and work on herself. If she can do it, that meant I could do it. And that gave me such an incredible amount of hope and faith. And from that moment on, I believed so strongly in the power of storytelling, in the power of talking openly about living with our illness, about living with bipolar disorder, because you just never know who's listening. And I doubt this woman knows that I'm talking about her if she was watching right now. But I learned so much from watching other people manage their illness. And I had so much hope in knowing that there were people further along that made their way, because, hey, proof of concept, right? If they can do it, I can do it. So here's how this next half an hour is going to work. It's super simple. In the comments section, right there, I feel like I'm pointing at the comments section. I have no idea what I'm actually pointing at. In the comments section, type in your question. Shorter is better. And Camera, Super Camera, I see that she's back. Hi, Camera. Will moderate them. She will find the questions. She will put them on the screen. She will read them, and I will answer as many as I can. Now, I am not a doctor, so remember, peer support only. All views and opinions are my own, and hopefully you can treat this like a salad bar. Take what you want and leave the rest. And remember, there is absolutely no reason to show up at a salad bar, walk over to the food that you don't like, and start screaming at it. Don't get mad at the food that you don't like on a salad bar. focus on the food that you do like. That is my advice.
I love that. It's like if this piece of food does not resonate with you, you don't have to eat it. You can
Just
go to
move.
the other half of the salad bar. Just walk away. It's a fantastic reframe. And also, like, I just want to highlight, Lisa agrees with definitely a few of the reframes you've made in your wonderful opening. What a fantastic reframe. Thank you for helping to shift the mindsets that we get stuck in. And I agree, Lisa, it's so easy to get stuck in those mindsets. And Gabe, you're doing a great job of helping people figure out how to reframe and reset. So.
Frame. I always, whenever I hear reframe, I always draw the frame in my head every time. All right, Cameron, do we have lots of questions?
We have a few, two that are specifically about medicine. So I'm going to reframe them in a way that I think is right to answer. So excellent. Maxine asks, I can't get off my meds. Do you know if people detox off meds? And I wanted to get your opinion. So how I want to reframe this question is, what is your advice with people who want to get off meds and how to properly go about that journey?
So this is such a loaded topic. And the first thing that I want to say is bipolar disorder is a severe and persistent mental illness. And it is quite possible that to live your best life, you will need to be on medication for the rest of your life. And so many people hear that as failure. And listen, I get it. I get it. The idea of being 20 years old, 25 years old, 30 years old, and taking a daily medicine like my grandma, it's stuck like right here in my throat, and it kind of stunk a little. But I remembered what my life was like before I got treatment and before I started the medication. And frankly, that should have stuck in my throat a lot more, because not only was I mean to myself and the people around me, but I was unfunctional. I wasn't, it was the dysfunction was palpable just being in a room with me. And now I take medication, and hey, do I wish I didn't take the medication? Absolutely. I wish that there was a cure. I could just get a shot and be well tomorrow. But it's a good trade as far as I'm concerned. It's no different than if you have asthma and you have an inhaler, or if you're a diabetic and you need insulin. I look at it like that. There's something that my body needs that medication and therapy are helping to provide. All of that said, my life is not your life. So if you do feel like you want to stop taking medications, if you want to titrate off medications, if you want to switch medications for whatever reason, that is a conversation that you need to have with your doctor. More often than not, people wake up one morning and they think, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, and they stop cold turkey. This is dangerous for any number of reasons. One, the medication is absolutely impacting your body. So stopping like that is going to have a consequence. And more often than not, that consequence is severely negative. So it's super important to work with your doctor, your nurse practitioner, a specialist, to make sure that if you are going to switch medications, titrate off medications, or stop taking medications, that you do it in the safest way possible. Listen, I can't be more clear on this. They are experts. They're experts in our employ. They went to school for 7, 8 years, went to medical school. They just did. Look, don't let a YouTube video beat 4 years of medical school and 3 years of residency. Rely on them. It's the same reason why we call the fire department when our house is on fire, because they have a skill set that we don't have. They have equipment that we don't have. So please, if you are thinking about stopping your medication, ask yourself why, tell your doctor why, work with your doctor to make sure that you do it safely. All right, Cam, are we ready for the next question?
Yeah. Very important to keep your doctor informed with your decisions with medication too, because there's like the process and everything there. So, yep. Our next question is also a medicine question. This is the kind of reversal. So Katrina is asking, I can't get my son, who is 20 years old, to stay on his meds. He was diagnosed at 16. It is a battle their entire life. What do you have a recommendation for Katrina to help her son with their journey back to medication to stay on?
Yeah, so the first thing is there's always I get this question a lot, and I always start it by saying, if I had the quick answer to this question, just dump trucks of money would be dumped on my driveway, because I would just solve this mental illness crisis forever and ever and ever. So keep that in mind, that these are just some ideas, some suggestions, some hints and tips. The first thing is so many people come at this from the idea of, I don't understand why he just won't stay on his meds. It's so helpful. It's for his own good. Why won't he do it? And I understand that. I want you to know, Katrina, I really, really, really understand that logic. But we need to flip the script a little and ask yourself, why doesn't he want to stay on the medication? What about the medication is making him want to quit? Because it's possible that the reason that he wants to quit the medication is actually a very good reason. The number one reason that people stop taking medication is sexual side effects. Look, I get that. You're 20 years old, you're taking a medication, your libido dies, you're having sexual dysfunction, and you think, I'm not willing at 20 years old to trade the rest of my life and my sexual history just to be erased. And instead of having a frank and earnest conversation with their doctor or a trusted family member about why that is bothering them, they just stop the meds and then make up a bunch of lies. Because honestly, it's awkward to walk up to your mom and say, look, I'm having erectile dysfunction and that's why I don't want to take the meds. But we have to understand that sometimes difficult conversations are needed. So let's find out why he doesn't want to take the meds, and then see if that can be addressed. The next thing is we have to think about how we're confronting these problems. So many people walked up to me and gave me that this is for your own good. You need to do this. Why don't you want to get well? And everything, I felt like this was attacked. They were just attacking me. Now, I'm already not in my right mind. Let's be honest. It's a mental illness. Logic and the way that we see the world, in internalized anxiety, suffering from bipolar disorder is already exacerbating the things that are coming at us. So even a little bit of animosity is my mom no longer loves me. And now I'm worried that my mom no longer loves me because there was a tremor in your voice, right? And you think, well, that's ridiculous. Well, yeah, it's illogical. That's what mental illness is. So it's super important that you're very, very, very careful in how you choose to partner with your loved one who has mental illness, especially in parents and children. There was probably a point in time where you could order your son to do something and he listened. Those times are probably gone, and not because of bipolar disorder, but because he's 20. So it's very important to walk up to somebody and say, this is a concern that I have noticed. That's it. You're not talking about them. You're not calling them out. You're just saying, I'm worried about you because. And I would like to discuss it. And then ask them how they feel about it. Ask them what they think is going wrong. And then ask them if they would consider seeing somebody for you. Not for them, for you. You'd like to go to the doctor with them to assuage your feelings. So it's a favor to you. And then set it up as a partnership. The two of you are working on this together. The goal is wellness. But more importantly, the goal is your life, right? So many people are like, hey, people with mental illness need to get well so that they can be well. Ha ha ha. People with mental illness need to get well so they can go to Hawaii, so they can start a rock band, so they can get a job, so they can get married. We have hopes and dreams. And so often this is always framed as you need to be well. Yeah, but so what? What's that going to get me? What if it was reframed that you need to be well so that you can go to Hawaii, so that you can get the job, so that you can, meet the person of your dreams, or start the business, or, heck, I think Hawaii is pretty good. Finally, sometimes parents are not the best person to address these things with their children, because there's just a dynamic there in the relationship that frankly just happens to a lot of 20-year-olds and their parents. Forget about mental illness. I thought my dad was an idiot at 20, and now I think he's some sort of genius. That wasn't because of mental illness. It's because at 20 I thought I knew everything and he was just a moron. And then I realized that, oh my God, he was right. I don't know when that switched, but it did. See if you can find another family member. See if you can find a trusted aunt, uncle, sibling, somebody to mediate, somebody to start this process over for you and be the go-between. Because I tell you, sometimes they just don't want to listen because, hey, you're mom. And there's some part of me that sort of gets that, again, given my own history with how I fought off my family, but I listened to my baby sister. So please consider all of those things. Those are some ideas to try. I wish you certainly the best of luck. Camera, next question, or you said there was a comment to address.
Oh, yeah. I think that you had a comment that basically kind of goes along the same route that you were just talking about with medication. There was a point where you were saying like people go off meds like for certain reasons, and not just, I mean, sometimes the side effects, and sometimes because the medication's working. Tammy had a really great point here. I've stopped my meds so many times. I've stopped because I feel better. I feel better because of my meds. And then you don't realize that that actually could be because it's working and not because you're ready to go off. So.
It is there. The reality is we need to be aware of pill shaming, right? Of medication shaming, of people making comments. And look, the best example that I have of medication shaming came from my mom. Now, before I tell you the story, I want you to know that my mother loves me. She supported me. She was my biggest cheerleader. She got me all the help I need. This woman worked tirelessly to get me help when I needed it. Hero. Like, I want you to hear that. She is a hero. And now I'm about to tell you how she screwed up royally. Here is one day, we're sitting there, I'm putting my pills in my little pill minder, and my mother lifts up my pill minder, twists it around and says, "Oh, this is bigger than your grandma's." And then sits it down and just walks away. What an off-the-cuff comment. She didn't mean anything by it. But I'm 25 years old, and all I could think of is I'm taking more medication than an old lady. Now, if my grandmother heard me call her an old lady, she'd beat me to death. So I'm glad that grandma doesn't watch Facebook Lives. But I internalized that so much. So it would have been better if I was mature enough to say, you know, Mom, that kind of hurt my feelings. Because my mom would have immediately said, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. We could have worked that out, but I didn't have it, and she didn't know that she stepped in it. So to all the helpers out there, all the friends and loved ones, be really careful about comments like that. You don't realize that they have such a huge impact, even though I completely know it's accidental, and most people do. And two, if somebody does step in it around you, come on, we got to be adults. You got to say, you know, Mom, that hurt my feelings, and explain why. And we both have to do our part. And like I said, my mom, biggest fan, huge cheerleader. And maybe that's why it hurts so much, right? So let's just be aware of that, careful about it. And let's not let an accidental misunderstanding cause us to make a mistake that's going to have huge ramifications for the rest of our lives. Aha, I no longer take my meds to spite my mother. Come on, that's not going to work.
Who does that actually help in the long run?
Right. Thank you so much for that comment. I really, really appreciate it. All right, Camera.
I wanted to just address one more comment. We have a few questions coming in, so I want to get to them, but I just want to like quickly address one other comment that we got that I just think is just really wonderful to hear. Veronica, you were saying your depression tried to basically kill you almost 2 years ago. Like you felt like you were having really weighed down by that. And I'm so incredibly grateful for the amazing support groups from my peers and groups like the Mighty. And I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that, Veronica, and so happy that the Mighty could be one of those groups for you and that we're able to provide support, and just thank you for showing up. We really appreciate that.
I love this comment so much, and I want everybody to know I was clapping for the entire comment. I realized that when I started clapping, Camera was reading the first part. I was reading the excitement. I was clapping for the whole thing for the excitement. I apparently read faster than Camera reads aloud. My bad. My bad. Veronica, awesome. Our peers are so important. Everybody discusses medication and everybody discusses therapy. And those are two very important things. They really are. But nobody wants to discuss support groups, peer support. Nobody wants to discuss things even just like having friends and family and a group. Nobody wants to discuss finding our tribe, like on the Mighty, for example. Those are equally important. And people are like, well, they're not as important as medication. Look, I don't care. All right. They're all important. If you have a house, nobody is trying to decide which is more important: electric, plumbing, roof, walls, garden, landscape. Look, they're all important. Everybody wants them all. Nobody's going to want to live in a house that doesn't have a roof. All right. I don't care how much you love electric and water. Nobody wants to live in a house without a roof. And you're like, okay, well, what if you put the roof on and take the electric off? We need it all. Let's just have all houses, internet, high speed included. For free.
I like
for
that.
free. Free internet
Free.
for all.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
That just became a thing. I don't know why.
And I just wanted to put up, I mean, I know that like we're still in a trying time, and yeah, depression can be really hard, and suicidal ideation is real. I want to put up on the screen the National Suicide Hotline and text line, and it's also in the comments if that is something you need. Please reach out there if you are struggling. So thank you all. Are we ready for the next question?
Yes, ready.
All right, we've got a longer question here from Claudia. It's a kind of a story here. So Claudia is saying that their best friend has bipolar disorder, and the last time it got pretty bad, as he has such a bad memory, happens during conversation, and really big things like his child's birthday and some skills from work he learned ages ago seem to have just vanished. So this is typically from bipolar, especially the depressive state, or would this be a good thing to get checked out by a neurologist to rule out something else? What is your opinion on that, Gabe?
So memory loss is something that can come from bipolar disorder. It's something that can come from the treatment of bipolar disorder. So I want to say that, like, emphatically, right? It is certainly possible that some memory loss can come from either bipolar disorder or the treatment of bipolar disorder. That said, let's talk about that last thing. Should he see a neurologist? Yes. Yes, and here's why he should see a neurologist. Because he's concerned about it, because it's potential. It's a maybe. So often people don't want to go see a mental health doctor because they feel that they need to know that they have it. All you need to do is suspect. That's it. So I can't tell if anybody can tell, but I am Freckle City. Right? There's just freckles all over my body. And I go see a dermatologist every year. Now, when I go see the dermatologist and they do the full body scan, I don't say, hey, the reason I'm here is because of that one, right? No, I just say, look at my whole body. I suspect that I might have a skin problem being a translucent ginger redhead, so I get it looked at. I don't wait until I know I have cancer to go to the dermatologist. I don't wait until I know I have a rash before I go to no, preventative care is super important. I strongly suggest seeing the neurologist if for no other reason than peace of mind. You want to get ahead of this because memory loss is serious, and the longer you wait, the harder it could be to treat. And if it's not a neurological problem, if it is something that can be treated by switching medications, etc., having that visit to a neurologist and saying, hey, look, I think this is my medication, I think this is bipolar disorder, it will allow your psychiatric team to know where to start making adjustments. Because being forgetful, super problem. I remember when I first started taking medication and I didn't have access to the faculties that I used to have. There was a slight dip, and I went to my doctor and I was like, what the hell is happening? And they're like, unfortunately, this can happen. Now, we got it all adjusted and all worked out because I was super on top of it. And that's what you need to be, super on top of it. But don't hesitate to see a neurologist because you suspect it. That's enough. Suspicion is enough.
Exactly. It's definitely good to just, if you have a suspicion, go get it checked out. If you can do that for yourself. Like, take care of yourself. It's not going to get, I mean, if it gets better on its own, that's awesome, but likely to nip it in the butt first. So. All right, we've got another question, and this is another, I think we have a lot of medication and bipolar kind of how long will this last kind of questions today, which is kind of good. I think this is a really good live to learn about that side of things. Michelle is asking, if you were diagnosed with bipolar, will it ever go away, or will you have it always in your life? I don't take medicine, and I've been feeling fine. I did take medicine in the past, but they didn't like taking the medicine. If you can maybe share your opinions on that, Gabe, if like maybe having the wrong medication or whether medication is right for everyone with bipolar, and what bipolar is in your lifetime kind of thing.
Yeah, so bipolar disorder is not one of those things that clears up on its own. Now, I always put a little asterisk there because the way that bipolar is diagnosed, that it's certainly possible to be misdiagnosed. And people are like, well, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and then I never had it again. Well, maybe you had a single manic episode or an isolated depression episode that was misdiagnosed and then it cleared up on its own. And so many people believe they're like, well, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder right after my divorce. And 2 or 3 years later, I didn't have a problem anymore. It's certainly more likely than not that it was a misdiagnosis based on what was going on in your life, etc. However, let's go with the base premise of you absolutely unequivocally have bipolar disorder. No, it won't go away on its own. You will have bipolar disorder for life. Now, there is some data that shows that the older we get, that symptoms lessen, that it becomes easier to manage. One, that's not a lock. Just because overall in a million people it lessens for some doesn't mean it will lessen for you. Some people go the other way, of course, so it's important to understand that. But as far as feeling fine, yeah, that's kind of the bear of bipolar disorder, right? See, everybody thinks of bipolar disorder as extreme highs and extreme lows. Like those are the only two options, but bipolar disorder is on a spectrum. So yes, sometimes you've got that mania and sometimes you've got that depression, but sometimes you're right smack in the middle. And that just happens naturally. And you sway towards the depression, you sway towards the mania, yeah, you can do absolutely nothing and feel just fine. And that feeling just fine can last for years. It can last for months. It can last for days. But with bipolar disorder, the pendulum always swings the other way. And that's what the medication helps to control. Now, with good therapy and with good med management, finding the right meds and getting the lowest dose possible so that you can just have that mood stabilizer to hold you in the right place and make it easy to manage those slight shifts so that we don't get to the extremes, that's the goal right there. I understand medication not making us feel good. It's made me groggy. It's made me sleepy. It's made me wired. It's made me twitchy. It's given me dry mouth. I get it. It's given me sexual dysfunction. I mean, of just all the horrible things that can happen while on medication, I think that one is sincerely the worst, the sexual dysfunction. But here's the thing. It's finding the right medications. It took me 4 years from the time that I was diagnosed to the time that I found the right medication, the right cocktail, learned the right scoping skills, managed it, reached recovery. 4 years. That's a lot of trial and error. But I finally found the right medications. And even with that, as I age, some of the medications that used to work great at 25, they're not working so good in my mid 40s. So I'm constantly working with my doctor. But I'm not worried about suicidal depression and I'm not worried about godlike mania. Two symptoms that are horrifically damaging, horribly devastating, and in addition to being dangerous for me, are dangerous to the people I love. I always worry about what happens if, I wasn't medicated, I was in the fine range, and then I swerved into mania while driving a car with, my niece in the car, and I thought I was a NASCAR driver, and I felt the open road and, 120 miles an hour. I mean, why have a V6 engine if you're not going to use it? And I lose control of the car. That could be devastating to the passengers, including the young children that I'm in charge of. So I highly recommend getting in touch with the doctor and working on that to make sure that one of those swings doesn't happen when you least expect it. Thank you so much for posing that question. I really, really appreciate it. All right, I know we're kind of in a speed round here. We've got time for I'm going to answer quickly. I know everybody's laughing.
Oh, good. Before we do our little speed round, I just want to say Claudia from before with her best friend story. Just wanted to say thank you so much for what you told me. It is exactly what I was thinking. So glad I found this group. You guys are fab. You are fab, Claudia. Thank you so much for sending your comment and for being here. Like that you are even that you're showing up and wanting to ask questions is awesome. So thank you so much.
We appreciate you so much.
And thank you, Michelle. We appreciate you being here as well.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right. Speed round for comments and questions. Some of these are more comment based, but we can find a question in them. And some of these are more question-based, comment-based. Hello, Pamela. Pamela has clinical depression and anxiety and suffers from residual depression. Better, but has certain phobias now. What would be your quick answer to developing phobias from new diagnoses?
So, Pamela, it's certainly possible that phobias or fears that you didn't have will crop up out of them. But here's what I want to focus on, or out of a new diagnosis, because medical diagnoses are scary. Forget about mental, like getting diagnosed with anything is scary. So one of the things that I want to say, though, is that your level of awareness is impressive, and you need to pat yourself on the back. You're aware that you have clinical depression and anxiety. All right. You are aware that you suffer from residual depression and that it's not exactly where you want it. And you're aware that these phobias have developed. That's a lot of knowledge to have about what's happening in your mind, in your life, and in your body. And that's a lot of power. You're also here willing to openly discuss it, talk about it, get help for it. Channel all of that into a partnership with your doctor, your therapist, support groups, and work on those as much as you can, and be as open as you can, and find out what homework you can do, what coping skills you can learn, and just be aware that the more you're willing to talk about it and the more awareness you have of your illness, the greater your odds of reaching recovery. So I don't want to let that go unsaid to Pamela or to anybody. A lot of people are like, well, I have all of these diagnoses and I'm suffering in all of these ways, and it's never going to get any better. And what I hear is you're aware, which means you can take action. And taking action, that's what does it. The people who are unaware, they are in a much worse position. So do not forget to pat yourself on the back for being aware of what's going on in your own mind and body.
Wonderful. Yes. And it's just wonderful to be aware. That's the first step. Not everyone understands where these things are coming from. So we're really proud of you, Pamela. Thank you for joining. All right. Speed round continued. And here's a confusing speed round question, but we'll make it work.
We'll power through.
Yes. If you find yourself with bipolar and on disability, would you consider, I guess, if the medication, if you're still kind of feeling like things are not working, that the medicine is not working, that is a failure of medicine, should they look for a different cocktail of medication, or is it possible that some people will never function well on medication and with disability and bipolar?
So it is certainly possible that bipolar disorder can be so debilitating that even with medication, disability would still be necessary. Let's not lose sight of that. Bipolar disorder is not a one-size-fits-all illness. So that is certainly a possibility, especially given, some co-occurring illnesses. Like, for example, I have bipolar and anxiety. So I've got kind of like a twofold. It's coming at me from both directions. And everybody's life is a little bit different. Everybody's circumstances are a little bit different. And also area plays a big part in this. Everybody's job prospects are a little bit different. So yes, the answer is it is possible that some people will always need a little bit of extra help with disability. That said, let's talk about baby steps moving forward. You asked should you look for a different cocktail of medication. It sounds like yes, because you believe that you can do better. You're thinking, I'm reading into one little question. You're like, look, I have bipolar disorder and I'm on disability, but I want to move forward. So should I look for a different medication? Again, you need to work with your doctor, and I don't know you personally, but it sounds like yes, you should look for maybe not even just more medication, but job training or support groups or coping skills, because it sounds like you want to. You have the energy, the gumption, and the idea to move forward. And that is a very, very powerful force. Now, again, every state and every region is a little bit different. But if you have a program that teaches job retraining for people who are on disability, that could be something, because sometimes we can't get back to work at the job that we had. We need to be retrained to get to a different job. Also, I know many people on disability who are working part-time, and they're like, look, a full-time job in my chosen career was just too much. I just simply couldn't do it. It wasn't healthy for me for any number of reasons, and you don't need to justify the reason. So I went to vocational rehabilitation, and I learned how to do a different job. Or I work part-time, so I work, 15, 20 hours a week, and I have the disability that also provides me with benefits. And that 1-2 punch is a lot for me to do. And then as you move forward, maybe that 20 hours can become 30 hours, can become 40 hours. Everybody is a little different, but here's the bottom line. If you feel that you have the desire to move forward, absolutely communicate that to your doctor, because that desire is half of what we need, right? It never hurts to try, because the worst that could happen is if you try a part-time job, if you try vocational rehabilitation, if you try different medications, if they don't work out, we just move backwards, just work, and by backwards, back to where we were so that we can try a different route, right? And that's a lot of power. Plus it shows incredible internal fortitude to keep trying. So many people are afraid to try because they're afraid they're going to fail. But here's the thing. If you don't try, you won't fail, but you also won't succeed. So for me, I failed so much. And the people that I respect and look up to and appreciate are people who failed constantly, because eventually they put themselves in the position and they learned and they succeeded. And that is incredible. What's the urban legend that Colonel Sanders had to start, the KFC dude had to start like 10 chicken businesses before he finally made it? Well, it's a good thing he started the 10th. Now, I don't know that it was actually 10, maybe it was 7, maybe it was 6, maybe it was 35, but you get the idea. Thank you so much. I know we have time for one more question. One more.
So we have a lot of good comments. So do you want to answer? We have a quick question that we could answer very quickly, or we have a few comments that I feel like there's this one comment I really want to bring up that is kind of playing on one of the things you said earlier about kind of a support system.
We'll do the comments. You're in charge, Camera.
Well, let's do this comment. I really enjoy what Isabella had to say. Agreeing about recovery is relational. Someone with someone that they had said, someone with complex trauma could be seeing the best therapist in the world once a week, but if they don't have a solid functional network of people around them, they will never get better. Therapy provides you with the architectural plans to build the highway. However, if you don't have the contractor, if you don't have the support and the supplies coming in, you're never going to make it. Yeah, it takes a village. It takes a team. It takes your therapist is a great part of the puzzle that you need, but you need the other parts outside of it as well. I just thought that was powerful. So
Isabella, I love that. Absolutely love that.
Yes, that's quite wonderful. And just everyone on here, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Peter. I'm glad that you have enjoyed listening to this and that you found it very informational. And Julia, oh my word, never sat in on any of these before. Oh my word, well, come join us. Sit in on the different lives every week, events, and on this one too. Come back. We're so glad that you found it insightful. So happy about that. Yeah, it's just so wonderful to kind of see just the community also supporting each other in the comments. We really love to see that. Yes, I'm on bipolar type 1, and I've been stable for 6 years. And after extreme depression and mania, it took me a long time and a lot of work. And I learned a lot about how to stay on top of it. Learning the small changes in your mood before the blow up is so crucial. Yes, right. Yes. It's just so fantastic. I just think that this has been a really great live, and just hearing all the comments that you all have. And there's a few questions. I know Peter had a question about, I feel like this is a quick yes and no question of why do medications cause weight gain? That's a whole other thing. There are side effects that some of them cause weight gain, some of them don't. And, I'll use Camera as an example. Camera and I could be on the identical medication that causes me weight gain and her weight loss. The trick is, and this is why I tell people that you need to work with your doctor to find the right medications for you. Because yes, some medications cause weight gain. It's just a side effect of the medication that we're aware of. But if you keep working with your doctor, generally speaking, you can find one that won't cause weight gain for you. But it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort, and it is very, very difficult. And it does involve a good partnership between you and your medical team. As to the why, yeah, that's a
That's a science question. I don't do well with those.
Oh, thank you, Peter, though, for asking a question and for joining us today. And thank you to everyone else. I mean, and everyone who's shared that this was helpful for them and interesting. And get Gabe's book, Mental Illness is an Asshole. Like, get the book at gabehoward.com. If you want more, if you maybe want to find why medication causes weight gain, maybe there's the answer in the book, maybe not, but you'll never know unless you read the book.
That's a great sales pitch. It might be in there, it might not,
but you have to read it. And then just one last thing before we get off, and I see that we have more questions coming in, but we're gonna have to wrap this live up. I do want to say, Lisa, thank you so much that the Mighty has made you realize you are not alone and gives you tips on how to manage your bipolar and OCD combo. That is fantastic. We're so grateful that gives you that space, and would love for you to come back to some of our other events and ask us some more questions there. We do have to wrap up now. But thank you. I just appreciate that we're able to be here for you and that you're able to share here. That's really incredible. So
thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Go get Gabe's book. Find out all the answers to life's unsolved questions, possibly. Or you can listen to Prayer Health Companion. Either way, get Gabe's book at gabehoward.com when we will see you. Yes, and listen to Inside Mental Health Podcast, the Psych Central podcast. I don't have the link for that, but you can find it there. We will be back.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. psychcentral.com/show. Thank you, everyone. Bi-weekly. This will be back not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. And in the meantime, join us for some of our other lives and Mighty events at events.themighty.com. Yeah, you'll find it. Find our events. Enjoy and have a great rest of your day. Stay mighty, everyone. Bye.